Hey everybody, it's the 4K Lowdown, and let me talk to you for a minute because sometimes when we buy movies for our collections, and let me know if you feel this too, sometimes we buy eggs. And what I mean by eggs is they are just rotten. Um, you buy a movie thinking that it's good, turns out not to be good, or you do what's called a blind buy. And a blind buy means that you don't know a lot about the movie, but you look at the cover, you read the box, and you go, all right, I'm going to give this a shot. And I did that with a few movies, and I'm going to review them here because they turned out to be kind of eggs. They weren't horrible, but not something that I should have bought. So let's take a look at these, and we're going to start with 13 Minutes. 13 Minutes is a disaster movie. Let's read the box. Four families in a Heartland town are tested when a massive storm hits, giving them just 13 minutes to get to shelter before the largest tornado on record ravages the town, leaving them searching for their loved ones and fighting for their lives. In the wake of total devastation, everyone must overcome their differences and find strength in themselves and in each other in order to survive. I read that and I'm like, okay, first of all, I'm a sucker for disaster movies. Second of all, I'm like, okay, this seems like a cross between, Twister, because tornado movie, and The Impossible. And for those of you who have any idea of what The Impossible is, that's the story of a tsunami that um, crashed into Southeast Asia, and it's the story of them surviving. It's based on a true story. Ewan McGregor stars in it, I think, and just a great movie about triumph and hardship and missing people and crazy stuff. And so I was thinking, okay, if this is along those lines or even close to it, I'd be happy. But it wasn't. Uh, I call it, I think it's called 13 minutes because there were actually 13 minutes of a good movie in here. Otherwise, the whole beginning of the movie, I mean, shoot, the whole first three quarters of the movie is pretty much character development. And I was hoping that a tornado would hit my TV because I didn't want to watch it anymore. Once it got to the storm, it was good. But is it worth getting to the rest of that? No. So let's go with the scores. So for cast, I gave this a 10 because I mean, look at the cast, and I call them a list of almosts and not anymores. You have Trace Adkins, Thora Birch, Peter Fasinelli, Anne Heche, Amy Smart, Paz Vega, and that's not all. Um, there's a whole list of people that I could pick out and go, yeah, I know that guy, I know that actor, I know that actor. Just a lot of people that either almost made it or they're not really famous anymore. Um, so the acting was decent. I gave it a 5. Wasn't good for the cast, but for the actors themselves, yeah, it was all right. It's kind of middle of the road. For the plot, I kind of liked the plot. I gave it a 6. For the concept, okay. Storm, surviving, blah, blah, blah. Seems pretty normal. Um, Not based on a true story. Uh, so only gets a 6. The ending, which the lead into the ending was good. The actual like end of the movie, not so good. So I gave it a 7 because I really liked the storm and the storm happens in the end, blah blah blah. Not to spoil it, but just like the Titanic, which sinks in the end, the storm happens toward the end of the movie. Um, so yeah, ending is a 7, and the story because of the grueling character development that was like watching paint dry, I gave that a 4. Now we get into the genre and subgenre. This is a thriller disaster movie. So for thriller, I'm looking for intensity, which unfortunately gets a 4 because for 75%, 75 to 80% of the movie, it was all like, uh. So, and then it got intense. So 4 total. Pace is the next thing. I want a good pace with a movie like this. Not a good pace. Gave it a 3. And then suspense, which is the third thing I want in a thriller. So I want there to be a mystery or like an unknown. That got a little bit higher. So I gave that one a 5. And mainly it was just like I was hoping it was going to get better. So that's where the suspense was. Which sounds mean, and I kind of made it that way. So for disaster movies, first things first, I want it to be epic. I want the disaster to be enormous. I don't want there to be just like a. So, um, and although it was epic, it was very short-lived. So I gave that a 4. And then for the disaster itself, I gave a 7. That's the second thing I want in a disaster movie. So I want it to be epic and I want there to be a disaster, a good disaster. So disaster gets a 7 because there was a good disaster, but it wasn't as epic as I wanted. So 4 for epic. So going over that, cast 10, acting 5, plot 6, ending 7, story 4, intensity 4, pace 3, suspense 5, epic 4, disaster 7, for a total of 5.5. So this is barely a meh. Second one I watched was Zone 414. Thankfully, I got this on DVD and not Blu-ray. But let's read the box. Guy Pearce, Matilda Lutz, and Travis Fimmel star in the sci-fi thriller set in Zone 414, a dangerous dark colony of humanoids known as the City of Robots. The colony's creator, Fimmel, hires private investigator David Carmichael, Pearce, to track down his missing daughter. David teams up with Jane, Lutz, a highly advanced AI equipped with the same technology as her fellow humanoids, but with all the emotions, feelings, and dreams of a human being. Together, they travel through the city, uncovering clues and a crime that calls into question the origins and true purpose behind the city of artificial humans. Yay? So I'm just going to get right into this. For a cast, I mean, aside from Guy Pearce and a couple of dudes I recognize but I couldn't name, I gave the cast a 4. For acting, I gave it a 7, and that's basically for Guy Pearce. He basically made this movie. I called it palatable. Otherwise, this was a stain of a movie. For plot, I read it, I liked it, I was interested. Guy Pearce was what sold me on the movie, so I gave it a 6 for the plot. The ending, I also gave it a 6 because it was decent, but it kind of fell flat. And story, again, the story did not come through. I gave it a 4. So now this is a sci-fi thriller. So for genre is sci-fi, for type is suspense. So what I want from sci-fi is I want good CGI. And CGI, meh. So I gave it a 5. for the CGI, and I kind of throw in like regular effects if there's not a whole lot of CGI, which there isn't in this movie. They try to make it seem futuristic by like changing your sets and the outfits and making it look all funky, but not a whole lot of CGI. For pace, again, really slow, drags all through the middle, couple of good parts. So pace gets a 4. Now, for intensity, which is what I want intensity in a sci-fi movie too. The intensity was pretty good, I thought, mainly because of Guy Pearce. I think he's what makes any of these scores good. Um, and for intensity, I gave it a 7 because there is like a whodunit, like a murder mystery, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And also for suspense, suspense is my highest score for this one. I gave it an 8. And then what else do I want in a suspenseful movie is I want a good twist. And there is a good twist. So I gave it a 7, but you end up not caring because the story doesn't play out well. So all this comes together. Cast 4, acting 7, plot 6, ending 6, story 4, CGI 5, pace 4, intensity 7, suspense 8, twist 7, for a total score of 5.8. The last one is Occupation. I keep mixing that up. Occupation Rainfall. Occupation Rainfall is a 2020 movie, sci-fi alien invasion, which turned out to be a sequel, which I did not know. There's an original movie in 2018 called Occupation. So let's read the box. Choose a side. Bursting with spectacular special effects and exhilarating action sequences, lie. Occupation Rainfall unfolds 2 years into an intergalactic invasion of Earth as survivors fight back in a desperate ground war. While casualties mount by the day, the Resistance, along with some unexpected allies, uncovers a plot that could bring the war to a decisive end. Now, with the alien invaders hell-bent on making our planet their new home, the race is on to save mankind. So I read that and I'm like, all right, sure, let's check it out. It's probably going to be a little low budget, and it was, but I thought it would be a decent fill in because I don't think there was anything coming out that week. Yeah, this is a 2020 movie, so there was like full on COVID things and stuff like that. So there wasn't a whole lot of movies coming out. But I'm really sorry I bought this. Okay, let's go to the scores. So for cast, I actually recognized a few of these people. QN, the guy who plays Aquaman's dad, and the guy who plays Boba Fett. Couple of the actors I recognize by sight, but not by name. And then there's Ken Jeong, who pops into this movie. And, nothing spells Oscar winner like having Ken Jeong come in. But he's the only one I know by name. So for cast, I get a 5. Acting, a la Ken Jeong, gets a 4 because the acting, not so good. For plot, I like the plot because alien invasion movies, love them. I'm a sucker for them. And so the plot gets a 7. The ending, and I will say the action and the special effects, for it being low budget, the action and special effects are pretty good. But spectacular and exhilarating, I don't think those adjectives work. I get cool special effects and nice action sequences. That's probably where I'd put it. So anyway, ending gets a 6 because it was good but not great. And then the story falls apart like a sweater that you should not put in the dryer. And so I gave the story a 3. Now, moving into sci-fi. Again, for sci-fi, we want CGI, we want pace, and we got intensity. So for CGI, I gave it a 6 because decent CGI. There's a lot of CGI, um, and it's pretty good, but it's not like, I mean, it's low budget, decent CGI. For pace, I had pace issues with this too. It dragged in some parts. It was a little faster than the other two, so I gave the pace a 5. Intensity, I thought the intensity was pretty good because, fate of the planet. So intensity gets a 7. Now we move into what I want from invasion movies. First off, I want good aliens. And the aliens were kind of weak. I mean, not necessarily the bad guys, but other aliens in the movie too. I mean, the bad guys, they didn't look all that good. And the other aliens that you see in the movie, they don't look that good. So, definitely some holes in that. So, for the aliens, I gave that a 4. And then for the invasion itself, I gave it a 5. And I think I gave it a 5 because I haven't seen the first movie. So, in in this movie, they've already completely taken over and they're just fighting. So, would I score it higher if I'd seen the first movie? Maybe. But is it worth it for me to get the first movie? No, probably not. All right, so let's look at the stats. Cast 5, acting 4, plot 7, ending 6, story 3, CGI 6, pace 5, intensity 7, aliens 4, invasion 5, for a total score of 5.2. All right, so 3 not not so great movies. Um, of the 3, I think the only one worth a watch is probably Zone 414. The other two, only if you're desperate. I, however, have to put these on my shelf because I bought them. Maybe I'll watch them for like a drinking game or something. But other than that, I was disappointed. So, just like in just about anything else, in movie collecting or in movie buying, you win some, you lose some. That's it for me. Thank you for watching. Again, like and subscribe for more reviews, more unboxings, all that kind of good stuff. This is the 4K Lowdown, and we're signing off. Thanks.